Excellent good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And I have to say, there is a huge disconnect and irony when it comes to your president in South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. He refuses to accept that there is something terribly wrong going on when it comes to farm attacks. And yet, he is also so engrossed in his own fortune, which has been obtained illegitimately using strategies like black economic empowerment, that he is totally disconnected with the rest of the population in South Africa, and that's regardless of color. He is one of the most devious people I think I've ever come across. He suggests that he is doing this for the people. He's always going to sort things out. And yet, when you look at the root of what went wrong with Eskom, I put up a video a few days ago which revealed that he was in charge of trying to sort Eskom out many years ago. And of course, it just fell apart under his watch. And when he talked the other day about sabotage, remember that famous comment where Eskom went to load shedding 6 because of sabotage? Well, let me show you an image which sums up the truth. Now, Hippo Eyes Ramaphosa is playing a very, very dangerous game. He's seen South Africa slide into nothingness. And I haven't talked much recently about what's going on the farms and the farm attacks. Not because I've changed my goals or anything like that, but because there is so much happening in South Africa that's going pear-shaped. It's ridiculous. This is all happening under Ramaphosa's watch. Now, let's talk about the farm situation, because I think it's time we focused on that for a moment. And there are now claims that these farm attacks are being coordinated through the ANC government. And this is not a claim I'm making. It's a claim that's been made by Christopher Gumbi, who's actually a black African fellow. And he's also, well, let me tell you the story. Claims of kingpins in charge of well-planned crime operations with connections in government, highly trained hit squads using children to secure intelligence in farm attacks, occasional acts of intimidation to force landowners off their property, and inhuman physical trauma inflicted on victims of such heinous crimes speak of the evil that characterizes incidences committed against the inhabitants of some of the remotest locations in South Africa. Limpopo is no exception, and when embarking on research into farm attacks, University of Limpopo research assistant Christopher Gumbi couldn't possibly have been prepared for unearthing the sorrow bottled up in recollections of physical trauma shared by victims of such crimes. Shedding tears with survivors as they revisited the horrors of the past, he got a glimpse of some form of crime that threatens not only food security, but also the entire economy of South Africa. His findings were consolidated in a 117-page thesis for a Master's of Arts degree from the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice at the University of Limpopo, which he obtained in September this year. Gumbi's investigation on the motivational factors for farm attacks and its consequential injurious phenomena, looks into such crimes committed in parts of Limpopo and in Mpumalanga between 2005 and 2015, bringing him into contact with 23 individuals and groupings who have all been survivors. Before getting started with the interview, Gumbi pointed at his predominantly monotone outfit in solidarity with scores of South Africans commemorating Black Monday, the countrywide action commemorating lives lost in farm attacks and survivors thereof. From the study, the reader gets varying perspectives of the situation as Gumbi delves into a decade of attacks through conversations with survivors from both genders who varied in age from 38 to 88 years old. Harrowing accounts made him question, among others, the need for inflicting physical trauma upon victims during the orchestration of attacks, he remarked during the interview. He notes in his study, the violent nature of attacks is amply demonstrated by such actions as beatings, tying victims down with cable ties, threats of burning victims with hot water or poisoning them and shooting them at first sight. Without exception, all respondents stated that attacks which occurred on their farms were well planned, mentions Gumbi. There is a clear indication that attackers conduct through surveillance of their target and surroundings before they pounce. This shows the high amount of intelligence and patience they put in, making sure that their plan succeeds. He quotes a victim who stated that the assailants were picked up by a vehicle after the attack. This confirms the idea of a hit squad and a getaway car as a form of organized attack, he states. He further writes that all of the surviving victims mentioned that the attacks against them were linked to a crime syndicate, with the chief aim of robbing farmers of their money, valuables, and weapons in order to fund their operations. In one instance, he quotes a victim saying, "One of the attackers informed my son that he is part of a crime syndicate and that they cannot remain in custody. These cell groups have kingpins in every town who use kids for stealing because the kids cannot be prosecuted. This is a well-planned operation involving police, public prosecutors, judges, magistrates to high-ranking officials of the government." Did you get that? This is not in isolation just some black thugs going out there and have you go at farmers, ambushing and invading farmsteads. This is what this research shows. This is a well-planned operation involving police, public prosecutors, judges, magistrates, to high-ranking officials in the government. And let's remember that Hippo-eyes Ramaphosa has just set free something like 15,000 people behind bars. And of course, they're all black criminals, aren't they? So that's just compounded the problem you have with crime in South Africa. Absolute genius. Let's get back to the story here. Some of the victims maintain their belief that the attackers were a mix of South African and Zimbabwean with military training, according to the information contained in the study. In one incident, a victim recalled that the attackers collected all spent cartridges on the scene. In another attack, the assailants allegedly ran more than 4 kilometers while carrying rifles to their getaway vehicle and changed clothes in order for them not to be recognized. Gumbi reaches a conclusion that an attack on a farmstead from 4 sides during one such incident, which resulted in the farmer being shot in the head, indicated a form of formal training on the part of the assailants. In 47% of the cases, money and jewelry were not targeted, while 65% of the respondents stated that their attackers were not very interested in other items but their weapons. What the researchers had established was that the attackers always knew the arrangement of the targeted farmsteads, where the safes were and where the weapons were kept. It led to the inference that the attacks should have been orchestrated with the help of insiders, who allegedly include teens living on farms. Now, we have covered this a lot on this channel, and I'm pretty sure that just about every farmer in South Africa understands this today. Most of the information and the intelligence that these guys who come in and attack farmers, and even in the cities, in your own home, are through the domestic servants working for you. It cuts down to that. That's how they get the inside information. Where the safe is, what time you're going to be home, all that sort of information is provided to the attackers. According to Gumby's research, 78% of the respondents who reported farm attacks related a form of intimidation aimed at driving farmers off their land. A female victim informed him that she had believed the attack on her farm was a form of intimidation because the attackers never stole anything but just started firing through the windows of the house without prior warning. She said, "More than 60 shots were fired. My husband shot back with a .38 revolver. He tossed the phone to me to call for help. They shot him in the head. They never came inside. The attackers shouted they would kill all." A farmer who reported that he was attacked by 12 men informed the researcher that one drew a gun and started shooting. When asked what their primary objective of attacking the farm was, they responded that it was not about cattle, money, guns or jewelry, but about taking control of the farm. 39% of the respondents stated that they knew the attackers. Get that? Over a third of those who had been attacked knew the people who were attacking them. A respondent who was attacked twice in 2007 and 2014 said his wife knew one of the attackers because she recognized his voice during the initial attack. Gumby quoted survivors who were asked whether farms with poor security were singled out for attacks as saying, "Poor security is not a contributing factor. It's all about brutal revenge and financial purposes." And he went on to say, "I don't think poor security is a point here. These attacks are orchestrated by some leader somewhere who wants to drive farmers off their land." Gumby further remarks that farmers do not feel that they are receiving the necessary service delivery from the South African Police Service. From the responses, it is clear that the police are not doing enough to assist the farmers during and after an attack, he writes. Negligence and dereliction of duty are evident from the responses of respondents. Serious allegations concerning negligence with firearms raise concerns. Farm attacks need to be addressed holistically, hence the researcher concedes. More role players, such as all government departments and non-profit organizations, need to play a more active role in improving security on farms to protect food security. Gumby points out that unless security in farms is made a national priority, farm attacks will continue to increase. He recommends that it gets prioritized and discussed as part of South Africa's national agenda, particularly in Parliament. He also recommends that racial stereotypes in farming urgently gets addressed. The South African justice system needs to recognize farm attacks as a criminal charge of its own, with a strict mandatory minimum sentence applied. This will serve as a form of deterrent to attackers. Gumby expresses great concern over farm attacks in South Africa, not being given the necessary attention by the government, considering the effects such crimes have on the economy and the well-being of families, victims, and communities. According to him, South Africa has a responsibility to view farm attacks as a violation of human rights and a threat to the country's economic and food security. The rural farming community contributes substantially to the growth and development of the South African economy. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa is a snake. he's a man who's saying that, oh no, there's nothing, there are no white farmers being killed, everything is cool, everything is fine. He is a snake in the grass. That's all I can say about this, guys. I'm just letting you know that it's become very self-apparent to me when you look at what they're doing with affirmative action and doubling down on triple B, double E, and black economic empowerment. The president of South Africa is the worst possible president you could have for a nation which is proclaiming itself as the Rainbow Nation. Comes down to that basic understanding. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, stay safe. Bye for now.